Most people like to believe they are rational, careful, and strategic, but in reality, what they call planning is usually fear dressed up as intelligence. It looks professional, it sounds responsible, it feels safe. But underneath all of it is hesitation, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing money. Planning becomes a mask that allows people to avoid the one thing that actually changes their life: decisive action. They convince themselves they are preparing for success when in truth they are postponing it. Fear rarely announces itself openly. It doesn't say, "I'm scared." Instead, it whispers, "Let me think a bit more," or "I'm not ready yet," or "I just need one more piece of information." That's why planning is so dangerous. It feels productive while quietly keeping you stuck. You're busy, but you're not moving. You're active, but you're not exposed to risk. And without risk, there is no growth, no leverage, and no profit. In business, uncertainty is permanent. Waiting for certainty is waiting forever. Markets change, competitors move, opportunities expire. People who win are not the ones who planned the longest. They are the ones who acted the fastest and adapted the quickest. They understood that imperfect action beats perfect planning every single time. While others were drawing diagrams and polishing presentations, they were already in the game, learning what actually works. Planning often becomes an excuse to protect ego. As long as you haven't acted, you haven't failed. As long as nothing is on the line, your self-image stays intact. But growth demands vulnerability. It demands that you risk being wrong, looking foolish, or losing money. People who hide behind planning avoid these risks, but they also avoid the rewards. They stay comfortable, average, and visible. Another problem with over-planning is that it creates a false sense of control. People think if they plan enough, they can eliminate risk. That's a lie. Risk doesn't disappear. It just shifts. By avoiding action, you take on a different risk: stagnation. You risk becoming irrelevant. You risk wasting years of your life waiting for conditions that will never be perfect. You risk waking up one day realizing that other people, less intelligent and less prepared than you, are far ahead simply because they had the courage to move. Action exposes reality. Planning lives in imagination. In your head, everything makes sense. In the real world, customers behave differently, deals fall apart, costs increase, and problems appear that no plan could predict. That's not failure, that's feedback. And feedback is priceless. Every action teaches you something planning never can. Sharpens judgment, builds resilience, and creates momentum. Momentum is what separates winners from talkers. People who succeed understand that planning should be minimal and execution should be relentless. A rough direction is enough. You don't need the full picture, you need the first step. Once you move, clarity follows. Adjustments happen naturally because now you are dealing with facts instead of fantasies. The market starts educating you in real time, and that education is far more valuable than anything written in a notebook. Fear-based planning also kills urgency. When there's no deadline for action, time slips away unnoticed. Turn into months. Months turn into years. The cost of delay compounds quietly. Confidence erodes. Self-trust weakens. Each day you don't act reinforces the identity of someone who hesitates. Over time, that identity becomes harder to break than any external obstacle. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. Most people already know enough to start. They don't lack information, they lack nerve. They don't need another strategy, they need commitment. Planning feels safe because it demands nothing from you. Action demands everything: focus, energy, responsibility, and accountability. That's why so few people choose it. When you stop hiding behind planning, things change fast. You become sharper because mistakes force improvement. You become bolder because action builds confidence. You become dangerous because you are no longer theoretical, you are experienced. Fear loses its grip when it's confronted repeatedly. What once felt terrifying becomes routine, then manageable, then empowering. In the end, planning is not the enemy. Fear is. And fear often wears the disguise of preparation. The moment you recognize that, you gain power. You stop pretending. You stop delaying. You step into the arena where results are decided. That's where profit lives. That's where growth happens. And that's where people who refuse to hide finally separate themselves from the crowd. Most people love ideas because ideas are safe. Ideas don't require courage, capital, or accountability. You can sit in a room, talk about ideas, write them down, refine them, and feel productive without risking anything. That's why so many people proudly call themselves idea people while their financial reality stays the same year after year. Ideas alone don't pay bills, execution does. Money only moves when something is done in the real world. An idea has zero value until it is acted on. The market does not reward creativity in isolation, it rewards implementation. You can have the smartest concept in the room, but if someone else executes a simpler version faster, they win. Speed and decisiveness beat brilliance every time. History is full of average thinkers who became wealthy because they moved quickly, while smarter, more cautious people were still perfecting their plans. Execution forces commitment. The moment you act, you expose yourself to risk. You might fail, you might lose money, you might look incompetent. That risk is exactly why execution is rare and valuable. Most people want the rewards of success without paying the price of discomfort. They want guarantees before they move, but business offers no guarantees, only probabilities. That improve through action and experience. Ideas live in imagination where everything works. Execution lives in reality where nothing goes exactly as planned. That gap between expectation and reality is where most people get stuck. They interpret obstacles as signs they made the wrong decision instead of understanding that resistance is part of the process. Those who execute don't expect smooth paths. They expect problems and build strength by solving them. Execution also creates momentum. Once you take the first step, the second becomes easier. Confidence grows from doing, not thinking. Each action reinforces self-trust and sharpens decision-making. Even when execution leads to failure, it produces data. Data leads to better decisions. Better decisions lead to profit. None of that happens if you stay trapped in the idea phase. Another uncomfortable truth is that ideas are common. Everyone has them. Most ideas are recycled versions of something that already exists. What separates people is not originality, but willingness to act. Two people can have the same idea. One talks about it for years. The other executes imperfectly, learns quickly, and improves. Second person builds leverage, experience, and income, while the first builds frustration and excuses. Execution also reveals whether an idea is actually good. Many ideas sound brilliant until they meet the market. Customers don't care how clever your concept is. They care whether it solves a problem and delivers value. You only discover this through execution. Feedback from real buyers is more valuable than any theoretical analysis. It tells you what to fix, what to drop, and what to scale. People who avoid execution often hide behind intelligence. They think acting without perfect understanding makes them reckless or unprofessional. In truth, refusing to act is what's reckless. Time is your most valuable asset, and wasting it on endless thinking is a silent form of self-sabotage. Every month spent refining an idea that never launches is a month you'll never get back. Execution builds reputation. In business, doers are respected. They are seen as reliable, capable, and serious. Talkers are ignored. The market doesn't listen to what you plan to do. It watches what you actually do. Deals, partnerships, and opportunities flow toward people who have a track record of execution, even if their results are imperfect. Reliability beats brilliance. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you execute consistently. You stop identifying as someone who wants success and start identifying as someone who produces results. That identity change is powerful. It affects how you think, how you speak, and how others treat you. Execution turns ambition into authority. At its core, execution is about ownership. When you act, you take responsibility for outcomes. You can no longer blame circumstances, lack of information, or other people. That accountability is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. It puts you in control. You stop waiting for permission, motivation, or validation. You move because movement is who you are. If you want to change your financial reality, stop polishing ideas and start testing them. Put something into the market. Sell, negotiate, build, adjust, repeat. Let action expose weaknesses so you can fix them. Let execution teach you lessons. Planning never will. Bills don't care about your intentions. They are paid by results. And results only come from execution. Perfection is one of the most expensive illusions in business. People chase it because it feels responsible and intelligent, but in reality, it is a delay mechanism fueled by fear and ego. The desire to get everything right before moving often hides a deeper anxiety about making mistakes or being judged. Speed, on the other hand, requires courage. It demands that you move before you feel ready, act before you feel confident, and accept that flaws are part of progress. Markets reward speed because speed creates positioning. The first mover doesn't need to be perfect, they just need to be present. When you enter the market early, you start learning immediately. You see how customers behave, what they respond to, and where the real opportunities are. While others are still refining details, you are gathering real data. That information compounds over time and gives you an advantage that no amount of late perfection can overcome. Perfection assumes a static world. Business exists in a dynamic one. Conditions change daily. Consumer behavior shifts. Technology evolves. Competitors adapt. By the time something is perfect, the opportunity it was designed for often no longer exists. Speed allows you to stay aligned with reality instead of chasing an outdated vision. Fast execution keeps you flexible. You can pivot, refine, and improve while staying in motion. There is also a psychological cost to perfectionism. It creates pressure that paralyzes. When people believe they must get everything right, they raise the stakes so high that action becomes terrifying. One mistake feels catastrophic. Speed lowers that pressure. When you move quickly, you accept that mistakes are part of the process. You stop personalizing failure and start treating it as feedback. That mindset builds resilience and confidence. Speed does not mean recklessness. It means prioritizing momentum over polish. It means understanding which details matter and which don't. Most early decisions are reversible. Logos can change. Processes can improve. Messaging can be refined. What cannot be recovered is lost time. Time spent waiting is time your competitors are using to capture attention, customers, and market share. Perfection often serves ego. It allows people to feel superior without producing results. They take pride in their standards while avoiding exposure. Speed humbles you. It puts your work in front of the market where it can be criticized, rejected, or ignored. That exposure is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Growth requires feedback, and feedback only comes when something is released. Fast movers also develop better instincts. Repeated action sharpens judgment. You start recognizing patterns, anticipating problems, and making decisions with less hesitation. Over time, speed becomes a competitive advantage because your decision-making improves faster than those who act rarely. Experience compresses learning curves. Perfectionism stretches them endlessly. Another advantage of speed is opportunity capture. Many opportunities are temporary. Deals, trends, partnerships, and market gaps don't wait for you to feel ready. Those who hesitate miss windows that may never reopen. Speed allows you to capitalize while others are still debating. Even if execution isn't flawless, being in the game gives you options. Sitting on the sidelines gives you none. Perfection also distorts priorities. People obsess over minor details while ignoring the fundamentals that actually drive revenue. Customers care about value, reliability, and results, not whether every feature is refined. Speed forces focus on essentials. You deliver what matters first and improve later. That approach aligns effort with impact. In fast execution environments, confidence grows naturally. Each action reinforces belief in your ability to handle uncertainty. You stop fearing the unknown because you faced it repeatedly. Confidence built this way is durable because it is based on experience, not optimism. Perfect plans create fragile confidence. Speed builds real confidence. Businesses that dominate markets are rarely the most perfect. They are the most adaptive. Adaptation requires movement. Movement requires speed. When you move fast, you stay connected to reality, maintain momentum, and keep learning. Those who wait for perfection remain theoretical, while those who prioritize speed become practical and profitable. Ultimately, speed wins because it aligns with how the real world works. The real world is messy, unpredictable, and unforgiving to hesitation. Success favors those who decide, act, and adjust faster than everyone else. Perfection promises safety but delivers stagnation. Speed demands courage but delivers opportunity, experience, and results. Readiness is one of the biggest lies people tell themselves in business. They say they're waiting to be ready, waiting for more experience, more money, more confidence, or better timing. What they're really waiting for is a world without risk. That world doesn't exist. Profit has never come from readiness. It comes from risk calculated, uncomfortable, and unavoidable risk. Without risk, there is no leverage, no upside, and no meaningful reward. Every significant financial breakthrough in history required someone to step into uncertainty. Businesses are not built on guarantees. They are built on decisions made with incomplete information. The idea that you can be fully prepared before acting is comforting, but it's unrealistic. Readiness is usually something you feel after you act, not before. The people who wait to feel ready never move, and the people who move learn how to become ready along the way. Risk forces seriousness. When something is on the line, money, reputation, time, you pay attention. You think sharper, move faster, and take responsibility. That level of focus rarely exists in low-risk environments. When there's nothing to lose, there's little reason to perform at your best. Risk raises standards. It demands discipline, precision, and commitment. That pressure is not a weakness, it is a catalyst. Most people fear risk because they imagine worst-case scenarios without considering opportunity cost. They obsess over what might go wrong and ignore what they're losing by standing still. The biggest risk is not losing money, it's losing time. Money can be recovered, experience can be rebuilt, time is irreversible. Every year spent waiting for readiness is a year of lost compounding, lost learning, lost relationships, lost momentum. Risk also exposes reality faster than planning ever could. When you invest, launch, or negotiate, you get immediate feedback. You find out whether customers care, whether pricing works, whether your assumptions were wrong. That feedback is invaluable. It allows you to adjust quickly and intelligently. Without risk, feedback is theoretical and slow. With risk, learning accelerates. There is also a misconception that risk is reckless. In truth, avoiding all risk is what's reckless. Safe paths lead to crowded outcomes. When everyone chooses comfort, competition increases and margins shrink. Risk creates separation. It places you where fewer people are willing to go. That's where opportunity lies. The higher the barrier to entry, the fewer competitors you face. Profitable people don't eliminate risk, they manage it. They take risks that have a symmetrical upside where potential rewards outweigh potential losses. They diversify exposure, structure deals intelligently, and move forward despite uncertainty. They understand that perfection is impossible, but progress is achievable. Their confidence comes not from certainty, but from experience handling uncertainty. Risk also builds internal strength. Each time you take a risk and survive, your tolerance for pressure increases. Fear loses its grip. What once felt intimidating becomes manageable. That emotional resilience is an asset. It allows you to operate calmly in environments that overwhelm others. Over time, this becomes a competitive advantage. You can move where others freeze, waiting for readiness also weakens self-trust. Every delay reinforces the belief that you're not capable yet. That belief compounds negatively. Action does the opposite. It proves to you that you can handle challenges, adapt, and recover. Even setbacks strengthen confidence because they demonstrate resilience. Readiness grows through exposure, not isolation. Risk is also necessary for leadership. Leaders make decisions that affect outcomes. They don't wait for perfect information. They commit, communicate clearly, and adjust as needed. Teams and partners follow those who are decisive, not those who hesitate. Profit flows toward leadership because leadership creates direction and momentum. In business, comfort zones are profit-free zones. When you stay where it feels safe, you limit growth. Growth demands expansion, and expansion demands risk. New markets, bigger deals, and greater scale all require stepping beyond what's familiar. The discomfort you feel is not a warning sign. It's a signal that you're entering a zone where rewards exist. The truth is simple. If you remove risk, you remove reward. They are inseparable. The people who succeed financially accept this early. They stop waiting to feel ready and start acting with courage and intelligence. They understand that readiness is not a prerequisite, it is a result. Risk is the price of admission, and profit is the payoff for those willing to pay it. Clarity is not something you discover by thinking harder, it is something you earn by moving. Most people believe they need a perfect understanding of the path before they take the first step, but that belief keeps them stuck. They wait for certainty, confidence, or a clear roadmap, not realizing that none of those appear in isolation. Clarity is a byproduct of action. Without movement, the picture never sharpens. When you stay in your head, everything is hypothetical. You imagine scenarios, outcomes, and obstacles, but none of them are real. Your mind fills gaps with fear and assumptions, usually worst-case ones. Action interrupts that cycle. The moment you engage with reality, uncertainty turns into information. You learn what actually matters and what doesn't. Problems become specific instead of vague, and specific problems are solvable. People who wait for clarity are often trying to avoid discomfort. They want reassurance before they commit. But reassurance only comes after you act and survive the consequences. Confidence is built through exposure, not contemplation. Every step you take reduces fear, because it replaces imagination with experience. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable once you've faced it directly. Action also filters priorities. When you're planning, everything feels important. When you're executing, only what produces results matters. The market is ruthless in this way. It forces focus. Customers don't care about your internal debates, they respond to value. Through action, you quickly learn where to invest energy and where to stop wasting it. That focus is clarity. Another reason clarity follows action is feedback. Feedback only exists when something is tested. Until then, you're guessing. The moment you act, launch a product, make a call, pitch a deal, you receive real responses. Some will be positive, some negative, but all of them are useful. They guide adjustments and improvements. This iterative process refines direction faster than any planning session ever could. Clarity also grows from commitment. When you decide to move forward, options narrow. That narrowing is powerful. Too many choices create confusion and paralysis. Action forces selection. Once you choose a path, your mind shifts from should I to how do I make this work. That shift unlocks creativity, problem solving, and resilience. Commitment simplifies thinking. People often confuse clarity with certainty. Certainty implies guarantees. Clarity simply means understanding enough to take the next step. That understanding comes from doing. Each action reveals the next move. Over time, these small steps compound into a clear direction. Trying to see the entire journey at once is unrealistic and unnecessary. There's also an emotional component to clarity. Inaction breeds anxiety. Your mind spins imagining risks and failures. Action reduces anxiety because it restores a sense of control. Even if results aren't perfect, movement creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence sharpens perception. This emotional clarity is just as important as strategic clarity. High performers trust this process. They don't wait to feel ready or certain. They know clarity will meet them on the road, not at the starting line. They act, observe, adjust, and act again. This rhythm keeps them aligned with reality and responsive to change. While others are still searching for answers, they are already improving. Another truth is that clarity is temporary. Markets change, strategies evolve, and conditions shift. If you wait for permanent clarity, you'll never move. Action keeps you current. It allows you to adapt continuously instead of clinging to outdated plans. This adaptability is a form of clarity that static thinking cannot provide. People who succeed financially develop a bias toward action. They understand that the confusion is often a signal to move, not stop. They take small, decisive steps to break inertia. Each step reveals more information. Over time, uncertainty shrinks and direction strengthens. What began as a vague idea becomes a focused strategy through execution. In the end, clarity is not something you think your way into. It is something you walk your way into. Movement replaces doubt with data, fear with experience, and hesitation with direction. Those who understand this stop waiting for clarity and start creating it one action at a time. Overthinking feels like intelligence, but in reality, it is one of the most subtle forms of self-sabotage. People who overthink believe they are being careful, analytical, and responsible. But what they are really doing is delaying decisions out of fear. They replay scenarios, imagine outcomes, and mentally rehearse problems that don't yet exist. While they are stuck in their heads, opportunities quietly pass them by. Wealth does not disappear in dramatic moments. It is slowly bled out through hesitation. Overthinking disconnects you from reality. Business is not one in your mind, it is one in the marketplace. The more time you spend thinking without acting, the further your thoughts drift from what actually matters. You start solving imaginary problems instead of real ones. Action corrects this immediately. It grounds you. It forces you to deal with facts, numbers, responses, and consequences. Overthinking replaces facts with assumptions, and assumptions are often wrong. One of the biggest dangers of overthinking is decision paralysis. When you analyze every possible angle, every risk, and every alternative, you create so many options that choosing feels impossible. The fear of making the wrong decision becomes stronger than the desire to make any decision at all. In business, indecision is not neutral, it is costly. While you hesitate, competitors move, prices change, and momentum is lost. The market rewards decisiveness, not perfection. Overthinking also amplifies fear. The mind is excellent at exaggerating threats. A simple risk becomes a catastrophe in your imagination. You start focusing on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. This mental loop drains energy and confidence. Action breaks the loop. Once you act, fear either proves justified or disappears. Either way, you gain clarity and control. Another issue with overthinking is that it creates a false sense of productivity. You feel busy, mentally exhausted, and involved, but nothing changes externally. No deals are made. No revenue is generated. No progress is visible. This creates frustration and self-doubt over time. You start questioning your abilities, not realizing the problem is not competence, it's inactivity. Wealth creation requires speed of decision making. This does not mean reckless behavior. It means understanding that most decisions are adjustable. You can pivot, renegotiate, refine, or exit. What you cannot do is recover lost time. Overthinkers treat every decision as permanent, which raises emotional stakes and slows action. Experienced operators know that progress comes from making many small decisions quickly and correcting courses needed. Overthinking also weakens self-trust. Each time you second-guess yourself, you reinforce the belief that you cannot be trusted to decide correctly. That belief compounds. Eventually, you become dependent on external validation, opinions, or perfect information. Action rebuilds self-trust. Even when outcomes aren't ideal, you prove to yourself that you can handle consequences and adapt. High performers develop mental discipline to cut off excessive analysis. They set limits on thinking time and force action. They understand that clarity improves through movement, not contemplation. They don't wait until fear disappears. They move while fear is present. That ability separates leaders from observers. Overthinking also prevents learning. Learning happens through feedback, and feedback only comes after action. When you stay stuck in analysis, you stay stuck at the same level of understanding. Once you act, mistakes teach you faster than success ever could. Each misstep refines judgment. Overthinking delays this learning curve and keeps you inexperienced longer than necessary. Another hidden cost of overthinking is missed confidence momentum. Confidence grows from repeated action. Each decision made and executed reinforces belief in your capabilities. Overthinkers miss this compounding effect. They stay mentally sharp but practically weak. In business, practical strength always wins. People who build wealth train themselves to simplify. They identify the key variable that matters most and act on it. They ignore distractions and noise. Overthinking thrives on complexity. Simplicity kills it. When you focus on what directly impacts revenue, decisions become clearer and faster. Overthinking does not protect you from failure. It guarantees stagnation. Failure at least gives you information. Stagnation gives you nothing but regret. The silent killer of wealth is not bad decisions. It is the absence of decisions. Momentum dies in the space between thought and action. When you replace overthinking with decisive execution, something shifts internally. Stress decreases because uncertainty is confronted instead of imagined. Energy increases because progress is visible. Confidence strengthens because you are no longer hiding from responsibility. Wealth favors those who move, decide, and adjust, not those who endlessly think. In business, speed execution compounds just like money. The sooner you act, the sooner you learn. The sooner you learn, the better you decide. The better you decide, the faster you grow. Overthinking interrupts this entire cycle. Cutting it off is not just a mindset shift, it is a financial strategy.